A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Subcommittee on Early Childhood, Elementary, and Secondary Education. The committee will now come to order. A quorum is present. Without objection, the chair is authorized to call a recess at any time. We've got a serious topic, ladies and gentlemen, that we're about to engage in. It is discussing the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NCMEC, as some will say. I want to present a picture of the world for anybody that is over 40. I would guess there was a time when we grew up that we could play in the street, play ball in the street until dark, unsupervised, or play tag in the woods. And then something happened. Something happened to our nation where darkness came upon us and evil raised its ugly head and children became less safe. One of those evil acts that was taken against children happened sometime in the 80s. Adam Walsh, and it's just a horrible, horrible case, but out of it came legislation by this Congress where Ronald Reagan, then President Ronald Reagan, signed the Missing Children's Assistance Act. The MCAA allowed NCMEC to become the National Resource Center in 1984 with the goal of protecting children from abduction, exploitation, and abuse. Last year, NCMEC helped authorities with 30,000 cases. The NCMEC mission encompasses a range of vital activities, from helping locate missing children to providing support for victims of abduction and sexual exploitation. The organization works tirelessly to prevent these tragedies from occurring in the first place, creating a safer world for all our children. The organization operates the Cyber Tip Line, 24/7 Cyber Tip Line, and that has assisted law enforcement across the country in the investigation of suspected child exploitation. Since it was established in 1998, the Cyber Tip Line has received more than 183 million reports. It has proven instrumental in combating the crazy world, online world that we talked about, Ms. DeLon, in just a few minutes ago, of how the world is changing. The NCMEC offers hope in times of unimaginable despair. Furthermore, NCMEC actively engages in prevention and education initiatives. Through efforts as Team Hope, NCMEC raises awareness about online safety, human trafficking, and the various risks children may face in today's digital age. In an online era which brings with it new opportunities and challenges, NCMEC stands at the forefront combating child exploitation on social media. Through partnerships with law enforcement and the private sector, NCMEC has developed innovative solutions to address the evolving landscape of online threats against our children. Just last week, the country watched as big tech CEOs received sharp criticism for rampant child exploitation on their platforms. NCMEC is more important now than ever. Their commitment extends beyond the home front, collaborating with international organizations to combat the global issue of child exploitation. In a world that's increasingly interconnected, such collaboration ensures a united effort against international trafficking threats. By supporting NCMEC, we contribute to the safety and well-being of all children, ensuring that they can grow up in an environment where they are protected, nurtured, and allowed to flourish. That's why I've introduced the Missing Children's Assistance Reauthorization Act of 2023, which would update the law and give NCMEC additional tools to achieve its mission. At the opening ceremony for NCMEC, President Reagan remarked, "All Americans, especially our youth, should have the right and opportunity to walk our streets, to play, to grow, and to live their lives without being at risk." To echo Reagan, I want that same safe upbringing for future generations. And NCMEC, I believe, is the indispensable partner in achieving that goal. With that, I look forward to talking and having a conversation for her testimony, Ms. Michelle DeLon, about her work, about leading NCMEC. And right now, I yield to Ranking Member Bonamici for an opening statement. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Bean, and thank you, Ms. DeLon, for your leadership and for your testimony today. I appreciate that we're addressing an issue that demands our attention and bipartisan action. Every child deserves a safe, loving home to have their basic needs met. And when a child goes missing or suffers abuse, families experience unimaginable pain and horror, and for children, the trauma is much worse. Many survivors of exploitation or abuse fear showing their face, socializing, or even leaving the home. This pain has multiplied in recent years. We've seen a disturbing rise in reported exploitation and child abuse cases, particularly online, as the chairman was saying. For example, in 2023, NCMEC received a staggering 36 million reports of child sexual exploitation from public and electronic service providers like Apple, Facebook, and Google to its cyber tip line. That's almost 100,000 tips a day. Unfortunately, more than 6,700 of these reports were from my home state of Oregon. These reports include videos, photos, and other heinous content containing child sexual abuse material and materials intended to entice, traffic, and abuse minors. I recently visited Amani Center. It's in St. Helens, Oregon. As a child advocacy center, the staff at Amani provide forensic child abuse assessments and support for children and their families who may have been affected by abuse or neglect. And during my visit, I heard about the particular challenges that the Amani Center faces serving primarily rural communities. This visit reaffirmed my commitment that Congress can and should do more to help save lives by providing the investment and improvements needed to prevent child abuse and neglect and to help families flourish. So today, these issues have become more complex and challenging, making our work even more critical. Cell phones and other technology play a crucial role in improving communication between parents and children, oftentimes allowing parents to know the whereabouts of their children. But that same technology is also a gateway for sexual perpetrators on social media to have unfettered access to our children. Artificial intelligence can help search for and identify problems, but privacy issues add a layer of complication. We know that NCMEC has reported an exponential growth in reports of online enticement, including sextortion, growing from 80,000 in 2022 to 186,000 in 2023. We know that online providers are required by law to disclose cases of child sexual exploitation. They are, however, not required to proactively monitor or remove sexually abusive or exploitive content from their platform. So needless to say, this creates significant gaps in protecting students online. And as we saw from last week's Senate Judiciary hearing, these companies are not able to adequately address the exploitation of children on their platforms. Vulnerable youth are at heightened risk of endangerment. Children of color are overrepresented in missing children's cases. From 2016 to 2020, 31% of children reported missing to NCMEC were Black, despite making up only 14% of the U.S. population. And additionally, as we've discussed in this committee before, LGBTQI+ youth face disproportionate rates of experiencing homelessness, often caused by fleeing abuse or rejection by family. No child should be in harm's way or exploited because of who they are or who they love. Members on both sides of the aisle have long agreed that NCMEC is essential to protecting and supporting exploited children, as well as restoring hope for parents and loved ones. And today, NCMEC is working diligently to keep pace with innovative technology and get ahead of evolving threats to our children's safety. And Ms. DeLon, under your leadership, NCMEC has implemented new programs such as Take It Down, a wonderful program, I must say. This is a very important, certainly necessary tool to combat the growing problem of online child sexual exploitation by assisting families and survivors with removing sexually explicit images of children from the internet. Thank you for that program. You should be able to count on Congress for the support you need to continue this critical work, and frankly, it's unacceptable that we have let NCMEC's authorization lapse. So my colleagues, Representative Courtney and of course Subcommittee Chair Bean, have introduced the Missing Children's Assistance Reauthorization Act of 2023, which makes several important improvements to NCMEC and importantly reauthorizes NCMEC's grant program. I'm proud to co-sponsor this bill and call on my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this legislation and help it move to the full House for a vote. NCMEC is also an important partner and supporting runaway youth, support of both the National Runaway Safe Line and the expansion of evidence-based practices and interventions for families will allow our nation to better support youth who are at the greatest risk of running away or experiencing homelessness. I look forward to also discussing my bipartisan, bicameral Runaway and Homeless Youth and Trafficking Prevention Act. The bottom line is that protecting the safety of our nation's children requires all of us to do this work together, and I know we can. Congress must fulfill its duty to reauthorize critical programs like the Missing Children's Assistance Act, which funds NCMEC. The work of NCMEC is too critical to be caught up in the dysfunction of Congress. So I look forward to continuing to work with NCMEC and all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to protect missing and exploited children. Thank you again for being here, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Ranking Member Bonamici, thank you very much. Great remarks, and most committee members have signed on to the bill, and if you haven't, we would welcome that. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8C, all committee members who wish to insert written statements for the record may do so by submitting them to the committee clerk electronically in Microsoft Word format by 5 p.m. after 14 days of the date of hearing, which is February 20th, 2024. Without objection, the hearing will remain open for 14 days after the date of hearing to allow such statements and other extraneous materials referenced in the hearing to be submitted for the official record. I note this subcommittee that some of my colleagues who are not permanent members of the committee may be waiving on for the purpose of today's hearing. And now I have the privilege of introducing today's witness. Michelle DeLon was appointed president and CEO of NCMEC in April 2022. Since she began her career at NCMEC 2 decades ago, Ms. DeLon has held numerous positions, most recently serving 8 years as the Chief Operating Officer. Under her leadership, new programs have implemented to better serve our vulnerable populations, including Child Sex Trafficking Recovering Planning Team and NCMEC's Child Victim Identification Program, which has contributed to the identification and rescue of thousands of children from sexually abusive situations. On numerous occasions, Ms. DeLon has testified before Congress about matters pertaining to the sexual exploitation of children and has represented NCMEC at high-level events around the world. She has written articles regarding the importance of identifying child victims depicted in sexually abusive materials. She received her BA with a major in psychology from George Mason University and an MA in criminology from the University of Maryland at College Park. Ms. DeLon, welcome. We're glad to have you here, and you are, pursuant to committee rules, I would ask you to limit your oral testimony to 5 minutes of summary of a written statement, and I want to remind the witness to be aware of her responsibility to provide accurate information to the subcommittee. We met earlier, and you are a pro at this, and you've got a great story to tell. Michelle DeLon, welcome to the committee, and you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good morning, Chairman Bean, Ranking Member Bonamici, and members of the subcommittee. My name is Michelle DeLon, and I am the President and CEO at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, often called NCMEC. And I'm honored to be here today to share NCMEC's essential work to ensure that children are safe from abduction and exploitation, and to discuss the emerging dangers facing our children. I would like to thank the committee for its vital role in authorizing NCMEC's work. Without your support, we would not be able to provide life-saving programs and services to hundreds of thousands of children, family, law enforcement, and child-serving professionals every year. NCMEC is a nonprofit organization created 40 years ago in response to the unthinkable tragedy that the chairman mentioned, the abduction and murder of 6-year-old Adam Walsh. Today, NCMEC operates as a public-private partnership with over 450 employees working to help find missing children, stop child sexual exploitation, and prevent child victimization. In my written testimony, I provide additional details of our many programs to protect children, but this morning I'd like to focus on how NCMEC is addressing the current threats facing our children. Finding missing children has always been core to our mission. Last year, we assisted with 28,000 cases of missing children by providing customized case management services, analytical resources, photo distribution, and mental health, peer, and recovery support. We continue to see substantial increases in children going missing from foster care, including over 22,000 reports just last year. Children who run from foster care are especially susceptible to endangerments. Last year, 19% of the children who went missing from foster care were likely victims of child sex trafficking. We continue to evolve to address these emerging trends to find missing children and facilitate their safe recovery. For example, 1, technology has allowed us to hyper-localize missing child posters. In fact, we created a universal QR code that allows members of the public to receive photos of children who went missing within a 50-mile radius of their location. We are also developing a major update right now to our electronic reporting system to help social service agencies more easily report children who are missing from care. And we're also very proud of our unique recovery services team that works hand in hand with social service agencies. We can personalize a recovery plan for individual missing children who are being victimized by child sex trafficking. And we appreciate the committee's recognition of this important program by adding it to our reauthorization. We also play a vital role in combating online child sexual exploitation. Our cyber tip line is the congressionally designated mechanism for reports of online and suspected child sexual exploitation. Last year, the cyber tip line received more than 36 million reports containing more than 105 million images and videos of suspected child sexual exploitation. To put that in context, that's equivalent to receiving one report every second of every day for the entire year. Incidents of children who are being enticed online continue to grow. In the past 5 years, we have seen a 500% increase in these types of reports. And sextortion is an especially dangerous type of enticement. When somebody threatens to distribute nude or sexual images of a child to their family and friends, unless that child provides more explicit images. We were also among the first to recognize financial sextortion, which is a form of enticement where an offender blackmails a child for money instead of images. And this crime aggressively targets often teenage boys. Tragically, NCMEC is aware of more than a dozen children who have taken their lives in the past 2 years after falling victim to financial sextortion. We're also familiar with the immense uncertainty caused by the explosion of artificial intelligence. At NCMEC, we are starting to see our worst fears about this technology come to fruition. Last year, we received over 4,700 reports in which AI tools were used to create sexually explicit images of children, and we anticipate that the dramatic increases will continue as AI tools become more accessible and easier to use. End-to-end encryption poses another challenge to online child protection. We strongly oppose the implementation of end-to-end encryption without the proven ability to detect, report, and remove child sexual abuse material. And because of these threats, we continue to evolve our programmatic response. Last year, NCMEC built a new life-saving program called Take It Down. When a child believes that nude or sexual images in which they're depicted may be shared online, we will provide tech companies with critical information they need to detect and take down the images. 2, we have incorporated sophisticated machine learning into the cyber tip line. These tools help us elevate reports with imminent harm facing a child so they can be addressed by law enforcement immediately. And 3, we'll continue to partner with diverse stakeholders to find solutions to ensure child safety is prioritized in encrypted platforms. In closing, Chairman Bean, Congressman Courtney, I thank you for your leadership in introducing the Missing Children Assistance Reauthorization Act. This legislation provides vital funding to NCMEC's core operations and much-needed updates to our programs to protect children. Because like you, everyone at NCMEC, we believe that children deserve a safe childhood. Thank you for the opportunity to appear today. I look forward to answering any questions you may have on NCMEC's programs and reauthorization.
Ms. DeLon, thank you so much. That was excellent. I want to note, everybody, your written testimony is 17 pages. It has charts, graphs, it has state-specific information, and I know members have been looking at all of the work that you do. As I mentioned, that I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and we played in the street, but we didn't have to worry about the internet or being held hostage by some stranger having a picture or something. Your tool, and Ranking Member Bonamici mentioned it, you talked about it in a testimony to the Senate, the Take It Down. Take It Down, where in these instances of a picture or some type of discontent, that you help young people get these pictures removed. Can you tell us, walk us through how you do it and how we can get the message out? This is an available service.
Thank you, Chairman. It is an innovative program, really a first of its kind for children, and it really developed out of this growing reports that we were receiving from children who were saying that somebody asked them to take a photograph and now they can't get it back. And the aggressive nature in which it occurs is frightening. For many years, sextortion was happening. It was happening more often to young girls asking for images. Now, in the last few years, we've seen it really kind of flip on its head. For money, it's financial sextortion and very often targeting teen boys. Over the years, all of our internet safety messaging has been don't send a photo. Once you put it out there, you can't get it back. And while that is true, and we will continue to advise not to send explicit images, of course, kids will make mistakes. And when those images actually get out there, it is a very disheartening thing to think there's no recourse. So we created Take It Down. We created Take It Down as an empowerment tool for kids that if they are in an image that they believe is being shared or could be shared, they can come to our website. It's a very simple process, 3 questions. There's no personally identifying information included. Are you under the age of 18? Were you depicted in imagery of sexually explicit content? Do you think that the images might be out there? And if yes to all those questions, it will allow the program to the child can select the images they're concerned of. It does not send us the pictures. It sends us digital fingerprints of those files. We now have 10 companies, 10 big tech companies, who voluntarily are agreeing to ingest these digital fingerprints, and if they detect them on their platform, they will remove them. So we are, at this point, we launched the program in March of last year, a little less than a year. Kids have asked for help with 100,000 images and videos that they're concerned are out there. So this is something we have translated into many languages. It is a tool we need everybody to know about. I know it was mentioned often last week in the Senate Judiciary hearing. It's something schools need to be aware of. SROs need to be aware of, parents need to be aware of, because it may not be your child, but it may be a child. It's happening at schools everywhere, so we need to get this word out.
And part of that is, you've already mentioned it, that we need to warn kids not to, think twice about doing this. Ms. DeLon, you've done something that few can do, which is unite this committee, unite a Congress, and Congressman Courtney and I have entered this bill to renew the partnership of the mission of NCMEC going forward, and I'm excited. I think everybody is coming together. We all stand against kids. Tell me some of the ways you work with law enforcement that we could jeopardize if we don't continue the mission of what's out there, of what NCMEC, how you do what you do.
Well, law enforcement is right there at the front lines, working with these children who are being exploited, certainly doing their job identifying and holding the offenders accountable. We provide immense amount of technical assistance to law enforcement across all of our programs. Not only, you have 18,000 law enforcement agencies across this country. We provide in our clearinghouse role a very important function of deconfliction. To ensure that if one law enforcement agency is working a particular case that another agency indicates that they have information on or need to know more about, we connect these agencies. We provide not only technical assistance from our offices, but also in the field. When there's a critical missing child case, we have a cadre of retired law enforcement with specialized subject matter expertise that we can deploy to work amongst law enforcement on the ground with these critical cases to bring all of our resources actually into the community.
Nice. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being extremely concerned, 0 not concerned at all, how concerned are you about AI coming on the net right now?
11.
11. Very good. And I know you're also gearing up. We talked earlier about you gearing up, and that your team is racing to counter what is looks like it's on the horizon of coming. You were so kind to invite me, and I'm going to be so bold as to share your invitation with all of the committee members. Ms. DeLon and her team has invited me, but invited all committee members to come to headquarters, which is in Alexandria, 20 minutes, depending on traffic, right up the street, to come and see firsthand. And she said, not my words, you'll be blown away about the work they do. So hopefully members, I'm going to do it, and hopefully everybody else will do it. I yield now to Ranking Member Bonamici.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the invitation, Ms. DeLon. Look forward to a visit. In 2023, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children assisted with more than 28,000 cases of missing children, and approximately 90% of these cases deal with endangered runaways. who are highly vulnerable to exploitation and, of course, face a number of risks, including homelessness and child sex trafficking. So this Congress I'm pleased to lead. It's H.R. 6041. It's the Bipartisan Runaway and Homeless Youth Trafficking Prevention Act, which would reauthorize key federal grant programs to provide states with funding and services to help thousands of homeless young people and survivors of sex trafficking. So how critical is it to provide this at-risk population with services, and in what ways can enhancing training and trauma-informed care at shelters better deliver services for this population, which is connected, of course, to the work that you do at NACMAC?
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. You touched on an incredibly important aspect of our missing child casework. There are a large number of our children who are running away from state care, from foster homes, from group homes. These children are in group homes in the child welfare system because of trauma that they have experienced, whether it be violence, sexual abuse, neglect, a whole host of reasons why they may be in that situation. And all of our cases that we work, each individual child will have an individualized plan based upon the endangerments facing that child, because no two children are the same. And those are the endangerments that we're going to have to use when we're working with law enforcement and conducting our programs to try to search for that child. Having training and education within the shelters, within the child welfare community, it's critical. This is a game sport or a team sport. This is everybody in their respective roles being able to share information so we can better protect these children. We have a running list of endangerments that we are continually asking as a child is being intaked as missing with us, so we can work directly with the child welfare official who is case managing that child. To provide them the details that we have, the endangerments they have, and the experience that we see across the continuum with these cases. I will also mention about the individualized attention for each missing child. Again, every child is different. In the child welfare system, they may have a new placement. They may have a new caseworker. They may have a new law enforcement agency. NCMEC does serve as a point of continuity for these children, that if they do go missing, that we have the details on them going back as long as we've known to try to work with the officials to find them, not only to bring them back, but also to give them the necessary services that they need to try to break the cycle.
So critical. Thank you so much for that work. I was surprised at what seemed like a staggering number of coming from the child welfare system. So I want to mention a recent case from my home state of Oregon. Just last month, a man was sentenced to 6 years in prison for possessing and distributing thousands of photos and videos depicting child sexual abuse. The investigation actually started in Ohio, but it was successful because they found 6 individual cyber tip line reports from NCMEC that had traced back to an IP address in the perpetrator's Oregon home. So this is a success story, and I think shows how your work is so critical. Thank you on behalf of Oregon, and that cyber tip line really made this case. It solved the case, and it got the perpetrator incarcerated. So can you detail how the cyber tip line works with law enforcement to address these cases, and how can Congress improve this service?
Oh, excellent question, and just that case example details what we see every day. When we receive cyber tip line reports that indicate that there is possible child sexual exploitation occurring here in the United States, we work very closely with the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Forces, who are highly trained law enforcement officers in every state of the nation. Not only do they respond to the cases we receive, they also conduct proactive investigations, which it sounds similar to the case that you described, and they network with each other. They network for best practices. So in a case that you've described, it's not uncommon for one lead in one state to lead to another state. And if you're thinking about the 36 million reports we received just last year, we have a lot of information that's valuable to law enforcement to bolster the cases that they may be working, or in many cases to inform them of something happening in their backyard that they wouldn't have known about otherwise.
And I assume you work with all levels, state, local, federal.
We work with every law enforcement agency that is actively working to protect children,
how
federal,
many-
state, and local.
How many, in my final few seconds, how many do you have on your staff? Because it sounds like you do a lot of work.
We do a lot of work. We have 460 employees, 24-hour organization, and honestly, the most passionate people you'll
And I
ever meet.
thank each and every one of them and you
Thank
for your leadership, and I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Order of question is going to be Owens, then Hayes from the great state of Utah. Representative Owens, you're recognized for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Lon, for the work you and the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, are doing to protect children and take them out of dangerous situations. The efforts of you and your colleagues have led to the safe return of children across the country, including Utah. I read in your testimony account of a 15-year-old girl who went missing from Utah and was later discovered when she and her boyfriend were pulled over at an immigration checkpoint. The daughter was restored to her family thanks to NCMEC and the law enforcement. I'm sure the families around this country are grateful for the work that you and your organization are doing. Let me just say this, the state law culture is defined by how we look at our most vulnerable, and I really do appreciate what you guys are doing. I want to also accept that invitation, so I'll make sure we take part in that. I read through, one of my first questions was going to be about sexploitation, but it looks like you've answered that pretty well. My question is the Take It Down campaign. I remember back in the days when Just Say No was a big deal across the country, and everybody here understood it and saw it. Is there a federal nexus where we can help in that regard to make sure that it becomes such a common conversation, since this is prevalent throughout our country right now? Is there something you might see in that regard that we could help to expand that piece out a little bit?
I appreciate that, Congressman. It is such an important tool that's brand new and just starting to gain steam, but we realize there's such a need for it. There is proposed legislation that is currently would fix and improve the Take It Down program. Currently, the way that it's works is the child would indicate which images or videos they're concerned about, and we will take the hash values of those images, because it is illegal for an individual to send contraband images of a child in a sexually explicit. There is proposed legislation at this point that would actually allow a child to send us the images and the videos, which is, I can't overstate how important that would be. Right now, we are receiving digital fingerprints of 100,000 images and videos. We don't know what are in those images and videos. By actually seeing the content, we would have a better opportunity to be able to work with the tech industry to get those images taken down and give these children some hope.
Well, thanks for that. And I was mentioned earlier with the chairman. I'm glad we just had this hearing just recently with the big tech, because that's a big piece of making sure this all works out also. Can you tell me more about the partnerships and programs that NCMEC has with local communities and schools to raise awareness of the threats that are facing our children right now?
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, we have, while we are working to find missing children, stop sexual exploitation, we also put great emphasis on preventing these crimes from happening in the first place. We have so many cases, so much data, so many lessons that we have learned as an organization over the years. And what we do is we take the cases, we analyze them, we learn the lessons, and then we convert them into safety and prevention programming that we then need to be able to distribute across the country. Getting them into schools, getting them into after-school programs, being able to teach children, educate children, the teachers, their families, law enforcement, what we see at a macro level of child exploitation and missing children, and provide that into the communities. Understandably, we're 460 people in an organization. We have to rely on our community partners. And we have a community education program where we are onboarding national organizations, child advocacy centers, law enforcement entities, train them on the material that we have, educate them on how they can actually deliver the programs, and then put them into the schools. All of our material is age appropriate. It's all bilingual. It starts at age 5, kindergarten, all the way up through the teenage years with, again, not scary lessons, rooted in fact, data-driven, but very specific information for keeping kids safe. Our community education partners that we have worked with reached an additional 25,000 children last year alone. So we are always going to continue to onboard the community members who are in the communities, at the schools, working with the children. It's our job as a clearinghouse to develop the material and make it accessible and make as many partners as we can to get them into the hands of kids.
I'm going to give back my time. I just want to say thank you again. This is such a pertinent program, number one, and you're leading in such a positive way. We need to make sure we can do our best to support you in every way we can. So thank you so much for your
Thank you very
efforts.
much. I look forward to seeing you.
Give back my time.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the great state of Connecticut. Ms. Hayes, Representative Hayes, you're recognized for questions.
Thank you. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children plays an essential role in finding missing children and protecting our children from exploitation and abuse. In 2022, NCMEC assisted parents, law enforcement, and child welfare agencies with 27,644 missing children cases. As we've heard from my colleague, nearly 80% of children reported as missing were missing from state child welfare systems. A study conducted by the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General found that of 100 missing children episodes, state agencies only reported 33 episodes to NCMEC in a timely manner. Ms. Delane, as you know, it is federal law that foster care systems report any missing children to NCMEC. So why are state child welfare systems not reporting missing children to NCMEC at the rate at which they are occurring? And additionally, what are some recommendations to ensure better reporting by state child welfare agencies?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Excellent questions. The children who are missing from care continues to grow, as does our effort to try to educate and work with the child welfare professionals, not only to recognize the endangerments facing these children, but also to help them comply with the federal law to intake the cases as missing children to NCMEC and to law enforcement. We have been very strategic in building out education modules for child welfare professionals. We are engaging on a state-by-state basis to try to identify what the challenges are, why reports are not necessarily coming in. And we're also right now in the process of improving and streamlining the mechanism that we have for child welfare professionals to report, because we don't want the reporting mechanism itself to be a barrier. Need to make it as easy as possible, as accessible as possible. Some states, it's more manual. Other states have a more automated way of providing the reports. So we're looking to find harmonization across the different child welfare organizations. And honestly, it's a state-by-state process, and we have been working closely with them on that.
Thank you, because as we know, foster youth are at higher risk for trafficking and exploitation. So it's critical that we work to increase the rates of reporting. Last Congress, my legislation, the Help Find the Missing Act, also known as Billy's Law, was signed into law. Very proud of that. The bill strengthens cross-communication among agency databases and provides guidance for local law enforcement agencies, medical examiners, and coroners on how to best handle missing persons cases. Ms. Delane, when a missing child ages out of foster care systems, is their information transferred to the National Missing Persons and Unidentified Persons System, otherwise known as NAMUS?
At this point, when a child, whether it be a child missing from foster care, whether it be a child not missing from foster care, when the child does pass the age of 18, it is not an automatic entry into NAMUS. We will work with law enforcement if there's a reason that they wish to put it there. We will help facilitate that. We have a very good partnership with NAMUS, and we'll work with law enforcement on that.
Can you speak a little bit to how agency collaboration could help us with finding missing children, missing adults? I mean, oftentimes you have names and files just sitting in one office while another office is looking for that person.
Absolutely, and again, that's the decentralized law enforcement, all the different agencies that are involved in this. And that is, I think the key to everything is coordination, cooperation, and sharing information. NCMEC on the child side does that. In terms of ensuring that regardless of where a child goes missing, we are providing that deconfliction, but also having the opportunity to bring these multiple diverse stakeholders together to understand in any community what your challenges are as child welfare, what law enforcement challenges are, and work to find the solutions.
Thank you so much for your work in this area. It's heartbreaking for any parent to not know where their child is and if they're safe. So the support that you provide is just critical, and we all appreciate it. And I'm sure that, as we've heard throughout this hearing, we'll do whatever we can in the Congress to help support those efforts. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Let's go to California, the great state of California. Chairman Kiley is recognized for 5 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for holding this hearing. Thank you for the incredibly important work that you do at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which unfortunately is more important than ever. And some of the statistics in your testimony are truly alarming. That in 2023, the cyber tip line received more than 36 million reports of suspected child sexual exploitation. In the category of online incitement, there was an 82% increase over the course of just a year. I've held some events in my district trying to, partnering with law enforcement to provide education to parents about what the risks are, and I know that you do that across the country. Would you have just some sort of basic tips you could give any parents who are watching as to sort of what things they ought to look out for? What are the sort of platforms that predators are most likely to utilize? What are other sort of risk factors, risky behaviors that they should be aware of?
Excellent questions. And for parents, parents were really struggling with all of the different apps, the speed at which technology is evolving, and certainly the engagement that kids are having online as their primary focus of communicating with their friends and making new friends. We do many safety events in different communities, as you mentioned. What we try to teach for the parents would be not to be too bogged down by worrying about which app it is, or trying to learn, what particular app at any given time, because it's going to ebb and flow where children are actually engaging. What we do very much want, it sounds basic, but it's so important, is communication. Talking to kids about understanding behavior, risk-taking behavior online is similar to kind of risk-taking behavior offline. Having the opportunity for parents to talk to their kids, that the child would feel comfortable coming to them. That is one of the biggest barriers we see, is that a child is scared that if they go to their parent, they're going to lose their phone, they're going to get in trouble. Try to make it more of an ongoing dialogue to that end on our website, depending upon the age of the child, because that's absolutely necessary when you're communicating this type of information. We give conversation starters. So if your child's in the back of the car, here are some things that you can ask them to help them open up about their online use and any risk that they have. And I think on top of that, not only being aware of what the risks are, but also what to do if something happens, because there are resources out there, including the National Center. 24 hours a day, if a parent is concerned about something that they're seeing, they can call. If we can't help, we will find somebody who will. We are never the end of the line, so I offer us up also as a resource for you.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. What is the current sort of, what are the legal responsibilities that platforms, social media platforms or otherwise, currently have to monitor for this kind of explicit content and to remove it? And do you see any room for improvement in terms of how that legal framework is set up?
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, at this point, big tech, electronic service providers, they are only required to report an incident of apparent child pornography by statute. So if they become aware of an image of child sexual abuse, they are required to report it. There is no guidance to them in terms of what they need to report. At this point, a company would be in compliance with the law if they said, on this date and time, somebody transferred child pornography, child sexual abuse material. There is pending legislation, such as the Report Act and COSMA, that actually would require the companies to have basic levels of information that they provide in a report that is absolutely necessary for law enforcement to determine whether or not a crime occurred, and if it did, what are they going to investigate, how are they going to investigate. So that is one gap that we see. And also, we've been spending a little bit of time talking today about sextortion and enticement. There is no legal obligation for any tech company, if they become aware of that, to report that. That is simply if they choose to do so. Those are also things that are addressed by pending legislation that we are hopeful will pass, because it will certainly make the reports more actionable for law enforcement, which ultimately protects kids.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chair, sounds like we have some areas potentially for follow-up. And in the meantime, thank you for taking up the reauthorization bill. I'm very happy to join you on that as a co-author. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Representative Kiley. Let's stay with the great state of California, where Mr. DeSaulnier is recognized for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're welcome anytime to Northern California. Mr. Kiley and I will host you in different districts. Well, thank you for this hearing. I wanted to talk to you about your comprehensive approach to missing children, and in particular the case management part and how you coordinate with other agencies, with law enforcement, with public health, with school districts. In California, as you know, we have mandated reporter requirements but we don't fund it, both for the school districts and for their partner agencies. Having come from county government in a county very diverse county with 1.2 million people, CPS is frequently, and the turnover rate in California in Child Protective Services is 50%. They have to get a master's degree. We're trying to get more bilingual, but we know where the high risk targeted populations are. So how do you work with other agencies, that frequently government agencies, that are not funded to the level they need to be effective, whether school districts, CPS, social services, public health, or law enforcement?
Thank you, Congressman. That's really our role as a clearinghouse, is to assist. The existence of NCMEC is to assist law enforcement, to assist all of those who are in a position who are working missing and exploited children cases. When a child is intaked as missing with the National Center, there's no requirement in most cases that they are, unless the child's missing from child welfare. But the case comes to NCMEC, and then every individual child, depending upon the endangerments, depending upon the circumstances, will kind of go a little bit of a different track. But it opens up the resources that on a local agency that may be understaffed, underfunded, would not necessarily be able to accomplish. That is what the National Center exists to do, that we will provide that case management service. We will take the sightings 24 hours a day on a missing child case to ensure that we get it back to law enforcement in timely fashion. We will work to make sure that the photographs that we have of that missing child, the photo is the key tool for bringing missing kids home. We have, as a public-private partnership, we have the ability to geolocate, to get photographs of missing children out into the communities that the agencies that you reference ask us to do so. We also, during the entire episode of a missing child, while law enforcement's investigating, while we're busy actually looking for the child, analyzing leads, sending out photographs to different partners, we're also providing the emotional support to the families that are enduring the worst episode of their life. So to your question, what we try to do in terms of working with any agency that's seeking to protect a child is to bring all of our resources to bear to leverage up what they need to do for any particular child.
Follow-up question. We did an extensive look at trafficking in California when I was in the legislature. We had a bicameral committee that I, with a Republican, was co-chair of. In Los Angeles in particular, I'm from Northern California, it was just shocking. So again, a little bit less on the crisis, although I know that's role, but where you might partner in prevention. And you alluded to this about knowing where the target populations are and be able to transfer, using data, resources to get upstream to make sure that, and being careful about parents still have rights that this committee has asserted, but that balance of knowing where the resources need to go at prevention, so we don't always put the money in a crisis after the child already has been exploited and missing.
Absolutely. Preventing these things, the crimes from happening in the first place, should be everybody's goal. Education is the key. Education is the key. We have certainly do in-person trainings, education seminars. We actually go into different communities and bring all of the different stakeholders together, law enforcement, child welfare, prosecutors, NGOs, to talk about the issues and let everybody see from the other perspective. But we also have an online training and education portal that depending upon the user, if they're law enforcement, if they're child welfare, we are constantly adding new material to help basically educate them on what we're seeing and providing those services. So we have an obligation as an entity that is receiving tens and thousands of cases to convert what we see into lessons and share it with all of the individuals on the ground who are doing the direct services.
And it's always hard to measure prevention,
It is.
but to the degree you could, if you could share any of that, that would be helpful.
No,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the great state of Texas, where Representative Moran is recognized for questions. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. DeLon, for your testimony and your work. Very much appreciate your tireless work in the critical arena to protect our children and our young people. Ensuring mechanisms are in place to equip those who care for our children to recognize and report abuse and sexual exploitation and prevent child victimization is a priority of my own as well. That's why I've introduced the Jenna Quinn Law of 2024, a bill that provides parents, students, educators, and school employees with the tools that they need to recognize and report abuse and exploitation. A number of states have adopted already a law very similar to this, including my home state of Texas, where Ms. Jenna Quinn lives. What technical assistance or education programs does the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children offer parents, children, and those who work with and care for young people to combat abuse and exploitation? You just mentioned some, and you mentioned the word education is the key, and I agree with that. Would you expound more and be really specific about the types of things that you guys are able to do?
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, working, again, bringing our messages, our lessons learned, and putting them into very digestible, age-appropriate programs, safety programs is key. Because the threats facing a 5-6-year-old is very different than the threats facing a 16, 17-year-old. And also across the broad spectrum of online safety, and personal safety. And there certainly is an intersection there, but we do have two flagship programs. NetSmarts, the internet, the NetSmarts is geared again from the young ones through the teen years. Basically, work or the information we're sharing is a reflection of the types of cases that we're seeing. Talking about keeping your personal information safe, ensuring that you know who it is that you're talking to, knowing that you know where to report something if it were to occur. Then we also have on the personal safety, and that's geared at the younger children. Again, getting the messages to them early about personal safety, about private space, about talking to trusted adults, giving very simple messages. Now, we package our safety and prevention programs in really creative, animated ways that keep the children's attention. We have done an assessment of our tools in different schools and across the country to determine how exactly are they being used, are they making a difference. We do see from post-testing that children are indicating that they are learning lessons, that they know more than they did before. The adults are indicating that they now would know how to respond if a child were to disclose or if a child came to them with an emergency situation. And we also received valuable feedback about it might be a little bit too long, we might need to make it a little bit more nugget size, and how we deliver the programs. So we continue to evolve, we continue to improve based upon the feedback that we receive from these constituents.
Thank you. And the other area that I've been really concentrated on is artificial intelligence in this area, and with respect to deep fakes. Introduced with Ms. Salazar and some others, a bipartisan bill called the No AI Frauds Act. A couple of weeks ago, we had some hearings about that last week. But a part of that deals with these deep fakes that deal with showing kids in sexualized situations, which are completely false. How are online platforms and law enforcement agencies responding to this emerging threat? And does NCMEC currently have any initiatives on the AI front? And particularly, what do you think we need to be doing about that?
All excellent questions. We are seeing weekly reports coming in regarding deepfakes, where teenagers may be creating pornographic images of their classmates, putting them out online, or sharing them amongst friends or within a school. So it is absolutely something that's happening timely, along with our efforts on AI. 2 years ago, we weren't even talking about artificial intelligence with child exploitation. Now, here it is, the beginning of 2024, we've already seen close to 5,000 cases come in last year. And as the tools become more accessible and easier to use, it's going to change the face of how law enforcement works child exploitation cases. To your question of what are tech platforms doing and what is law enforcement doing, law enforcement is going to be struggling with the AI images. Is this a real child? Is this not a real child? And when you're doing victim identification work, is this a child in your community? Is this a completely fabricated, generated child? And so that is going to be a challenge for law enforcement there. Whether or not the laws on a state level or a federal level are equipped to handle the deep fakes is something that we will be seeing in short order. And as for the tech companies, we're in engagement with some of the generative AI companies who are building the tools, what their obligations, not legal, but their moral obligations are in terms of red teaming their tools to ensure people can't simply download a generative AI tool and create child sexual exploitation imagery. There's so much that needs to be done on the front end to try to keep this genie in the bottle, and it's already out. But we are working, again, bringing together diverse stakeholders, working with law enforcement, working with the academia, certainly bringing in the technologists about how do we get our arms around this now, because it's already a problem. It only will get worse if we're not moving quickly. Lastly, just on your tech industry, the tech industry, it goes back to our Take It Down program. Because if there are deep fakes and if they're occurring in your community, please make sure people know about that, because those are the type of images and videos that we will put in the repository for big tech to take, and if they see the images, they can take them down. So we again kind of sit in the middle of this issue that we see from a 300,000-foot level, but are very interested in finding solutions.
Ms. DeLon, as a father of 4 school-age kids, 2 boys, 2 girls, I'm deeply grateful for the work that you guys do. I worry about this consistently, about my children and how they may be exploited by those who intend to do something very evil. And so it's nice to know I have advocates like you that are working against that. Thank you. I yield back.
Well done. Thank you very much. Let's go to the Northern Marianas Islands, where Representative Sablan is recognized for questions. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. DeLon. Did I welcome, and welcome to your organization also, NCMEC, for the wonderful work that you're doing.
Thank you.
You know, we have to, it's unfortunate that we have exploitation. Children today, workers yesterday, and last week we just passed a bill last night, 447 for the U.S. Department of Labor to keep track and identify trafficked workers too. And so we need to continue to do this, because this is not a new thing that's just growing. We're just now, through organizations like yourselves and more open reporting, now learning the extent, and hopefully next time we meet, it would be, hey, we've gone down so much, right? But, you know, missing child clearinghouses are organizations that provide resources for missing children, their families, and the professionals who serve them. NCMEC maintains a liaison with each missing child clearinghouse and provides them with training, technical assistance, vital information, and other resources to help them with missing child cases. It's not the single time it's happened, but unfortunately these clearinghouses are not present in every part of the country. In my district, in fact, the Pacific Territories, none of the Pacific Territories has a missing child clearinghouse. Do not have a missing child. So what can NCMEC do to ensure that jurisdictions without this clearinghouse can still receive access to these critical resources that inform a comprehensive approach to child protection?
Thank you,
Do you
Congressman.
think, can we get started on trying to organize clearinghouses in these 3 Pacific Territories?
We would be very interested in talking with your office about how we might be able to assist. The Missing Children Clearinghouses, as you mentioned, they're amazing local resource centers for each state that has one, that we work very closely, because again, it's individuals who are highly trained, who are also very, very wedded to the community. So we do work closely with those clearinghouses, and if there's anything that we can do to work with you and provide any information that would be useful, we'd like to do that.
Thank you very much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Sablan. From the great state of Illinois, Representative Miller, you're recognized for questions.
Thank you, Chairman Bean, for holding this important hearing to discuss the horrific topic of child trafficking and exploitation. Recent data from the Department of Homeland Security highlights a concerning figure of at least 85,000 unaccompanied children who have gone missing after crossing the southern border, which is the consequence of the open border policies of the Biden administration. When I traveled to the border last month, Border Patrol told me that they have now lost over 100,000 children. 100,000 children are missing. The responsibility lies with President Biden, who is using our tax dollars to fly children on secret flights in the dead of night, who his own administration cannot later track down. President Biden has no concern for the welfare of these trafficked children. He possesses the authority to close and secure the border, but he's chosen to act as the last leg of a multinational human trafficking ring. We asked Biden's Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Health and Human Services, and Secretary of Homeland Security if they knew the whereabouts of these 85,000 missing children. All three pointed the blame at each other, claiming it was not their job to keep track of these children. I do appreciate the opportunity to address this topic, and I yield the remainder of my time to you, Chairman Bean.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miller. I wanted just a quick follow-up question while we got the extra time. It's not just a government program, and you don't just get money from the government. You have a public-private partnership, and you partner with individuals and companies. Will you tell us how that works and how we can partner with you?
Thank you, Chairman Bean. And a very important point with us being a public-private partnership. That was a very wise move 40 years ago when the National Center was opened to be the resource center and the clearinghouse for the nation. Because what it allows us to do is to work very closely with the government grants, but also across the private sector. There are many companies, many individuals who have a lot of contributions that they can add to the fight of child exploitation and to find missing children. We have so many partners in very unusual disciplines who bring something to bear. We work with a company such as Old Navy, a retail company all across the country who cares very much about children. They have parents, they have grandparents, kids, aunts and uncles coming into their store. They host an annual event for safety material that we provide, co-brand, get it out into the hands. They help us meet the audiences where they are. We work with other major companies who are able to provide in-kind services. Again, all of this takes every government dollar that much further, that we are able to harness the resources of the private sector as honestly, it's a group effort. This takes everyone. It's not simply a government solution.
Very good, very good. Thank you. That's important. The committee will now recognize from the great state of North Carolina and the chair of the big committee of Education Workforce, Chairman Fox. You're recognized, and good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. DeLon, thank you for being here today and for the services NCMEC is providing to protect our nation's most vulnerable. Your team deals with truly horrific situations, and your efforts save lives. As more kids are online and using devices at a young age, there's certainly increased risk for abuse and exploitation. I also suspect this connected age presents new opportunities and capabilities to identify and locate a child that has gone missing. Can you discuss how the prevalence of technology in society has changed the way NCMEC conducts its vital work?
Thank you, Dr. Fox, and thank you for your leadership and for having us here today. Technology does. It cuts both ways. It's certainly thrown accelerant on the issue of child sexual exploitation and made it a much larger problem than any of us ever realized. But it also provides the tools that we need to find missing children in ways that we couldn't have imagined 40 years ago, 10 years ago. By using many of the public and private partnerships that we have, we are able to use technology to meet audiences in different places. For instance, there's a company, GSTV, They're the ones, the gas station televisions, when you're pumping your gas. They actually donate more than 27,000 screens to feature missing children in a particular area. We've had recoveries while somebody's a captive audience pumping gas, and actually being shown images of children in that particular area. We use technology also to push out Amber Alerts, something that did not exist when we opened our doors. We are the designated secondary distributor of Amber Alerts. So when law enforcement in a particular state deem that a missing child is eligible for an Amber Alert, we are the ones who are pushing them to cell phones across the country in very geolocated areas. So with technology, in a simple way, on the missing child, it is allowing us to hyper-localize our search for missing children in a very noisy world, allowing members of the public to be focusing on the children that they have the highest likelihood of seeing.
Thank you very much. In your testimony, you mentioned that children involved in the foster care system go missing at an alarming rate. H.R. 5224, the Missing Children's Assistance Reauthorization Act, enhances NCMEC's ability to coordinate with the child welfare system and codifies reporting elements on children missing from state-sponsored care. Can you discuss some of the unique risks facing children in the child welfare system and how NCMEC works to protect this vulnerable population?
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, these children are often in child welfare because of traumatic experiences that they've lived through, and therefore there are many endangerments that might follow. Many of our missing children, a large number, who are missing from state care, may have endangerments such as mental health issues, substance abuse issues, maybe individuals that they're speaking with online. Very often will go to meet somebody that they believe is as a partner or go back to biological families. In terms of the education, what this Reauthorization Act will allow us to do is also provide more information in a very streamlined and strategic way to the child welfare agencies and professionals so they have the tools they need to recognize the signs and to know what they need to do in order to find that child. Working with us, one of the most important components is our recovery services program. It's something that didn't exist 5 years ago. Every child is unique. Every child has different endangerments. We have a very personalized response when a child is going to be recovered, trying to identify what their endangerments are, put a safety net behind them that when they are recovered, we can get them the services that they need.
Thank you again very much, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you saw on TV this weekend, John Walsh was on and talking about the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and he's one of the reasons that we have this program. And he had retired, but he said he got back in the fray because primarily of the horrible immigration situation. And so I'm sad to see that, but happy that we have this program. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Let's go to the great Commonwealth of Virginia for the ranking member on the Education and Workforce Committee, Representative Scott. Good morning, and you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank the witness for being with us today. One of the causes of children being missing is the fact that they run away, often because of abuse in the home. Can you tell me what kind of initiatives we should be investing in to reduce the incidence of children running away?
Thank you, Congressman. Many of the children who are running away, the vast majority of our children, more than 90% who are running away from child welfare placements. And as mentioned just a moment ago, in some cases it is the child running from a bad placement. Other times it's a child running to what they perceive to be a safe environment, a safe relationship, or perhaps to a biological family member. But what our data also shows us is that 1 in 6 of the children who run from child welfare placement are likely sex trafficking victims. Because when a child leaves their home, whether it be a placement or their primary home, they are vulnerable. They don't have food, they don't have money, they don't have shelter. And what we see is that there is somebody who's going to be there who will offer all three to that child at a cost. So it's really a matter of education as to what the risks are, what to be looking for, and then how to get the child the help they need to try to break the cycle of running, because there is normally something more systemic happening there, and you have to get at the root of the issue for that individual child.
One of the root causes of sex trafficking is the fact that there's a demand for the services. Sting operations, you work with some of the sting operations. Can you tell us how effective they are and what kind of deterrent effect they should have, and whether we should be doing more of it?
Thank you, Congressman. The operations that are occurring across the country, law enforcement will have a dedicated week or month in which they're actively and aggressively pursuing child sex trafficking. I can tell you about some of the services we provide on the ground. We've all heard about when there are major sporting events, major things happening in the country, that there is increased trafficking when many people congregate in one particular town, one particular city for an event. We actually do provide on-the-ground support for major events that may occur, whether it be the Super Bowl, other large sporting events and gatherings. Prior to the event, we work for several months tracking the classified ads, determining which children might be going into a particular region, which trafficker might be going into a particular region, building out case plans for law enforcement to inform them there's a likelihood this child might be here, there's a likelihood this trafficker might be here. In addition to that, it's not only let's find the child, let's get the child the help they need. Let's build working closely with the child welfare professional, what is this child's individual endangerments? What are the local community resources we can provide to them? So we actually go on the ground with information, with our tech tools, mapping software to provide that assistance to law enforcement, because again, we're coming at it from a very unique perspective of knowing which children are missing, who may be advertised online for a particular city, and then go help law enforcement try to identify and rescue the child.
Well, do you involve in sting operations where you place an ad and see who responds and catch them?
We are a non-investigative agency. We do not engage in any sort of investigative matter. We do provide technical assistance to law enforcement coming from our unique perspective of knowing which children may be missing in a particular region, but we do not take any proactive efforts. We simply are a support function for law enforcement.
Are you aware of such proactive initiatives?
Law enforcement may be engaged in proactive initiatives online, but certainly and sadly, the advertisements for many of these children, they're just in the public domain and can be searched easily.
That's why it seems to me we salt those with a little sting operation so people don't know what they're doing and might stop doing it. Can you say anything about child labor, how often you run across it, and what can be done to prevent it?
Well, child labor certainly being a very complex and intricate issue. It is not within our authorization. However, when we do learn of any sort of labor infraction or a child being engaged in forced labor, we do have internal protocol where we'll notify the FBI and certainly would provide that information to any relevant law enforcement agency for their action.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Scott. We've had a big day in the committee, and as we wind down and prepare to close, I yield to Ranking Member Bonamici for closing thoughts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again, Ms. DeLon, for your leadership and for your insightful testimony. I do want to note, Mr. Chairman, this is a serious issue we're discussing today. We have bipartisan support on the legislation to solve this problem. I implore us to please not get distracted by unfounded allegations alleging that our president is involved in some salacious trafficking scheme. I think that would be really unfortunate on something that is so important. Many of the concerns that were raised in the hearing today, I've also heard for years from parents, from advocates, and colleagues in Congress. We must do everything we can to keep our children safe and protected from exploitation, whether they're at home, in school, in their communities, and certainly online. And although this hearing is a positive step, I'm concerned that we have neither made the appropriate investments nor advanced policies to address the growing danger to our children's safety, especially online. And even if Congress acts swiftly to reauthorize critical programs like the Missing Children's Assistance Act, we know that online predators will continue to be a threat to our children until Congress makes a serious effort to address the gaps in law that enable the exploitation. So under then Chairman Scott's leadership, this committee advanced bipartisan comprehensive reauthorizations of the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act and the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act. Again, these are bipartisan pieces of legislation. I hope the majority can follow this example and consider these evidence-based efforts to support survivors. So I encourage all of my colleagues to meet with service providers, consider the work of important experts like NCMEC, and I hope that soon we will be discussing what we did to successfully fight child sexual exploitation, to protect children, to empower survivors. It's my hope, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, that someday no one will experience the abuse or sexual violence we were talking about today. So, Ms. DeLon, thank you again. I'm committed to continuing to work with you and my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, and I appreciate your time today, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Bonamici. It's tough enough being a kid, just without any other of these distractions, but the internet and predators have brought a new level of challenges to kids. I don't know who said it or the actual how the saying goes, but for evil to succeed is good men and women to do nothing. And you are proof, and NCMEC is proof that we will not stand idly by while our kids are exploited. We will protect them, and we will do everything we can to protect them. So I stand by. It's comfort to know that you and your team is there. We spent a few minutes this morning, and it's how vast you're rising to meet the challenges. Predators are always come up with something, this new AI challenge. So I take comfort that NCMEC is there to stand to protect kids. I believe, and of course I'm an optimist, I think this bill is going to pass, and you will, the United States will stand with you again as we all stand against kids. So thank you, and your whole team behind you is there to give you a level of support. With that, thank you very much, Ms. DeLon. You did an absolutely fantastic job. Committee members, we were engaged. You showed up. Thank you so much. And without objection, and there being no further business, the subcommittee stands adjourned.